Nicholas Organo, Milestone 1, SE456, here to go over all the patterns used in the code. To start off, we have the singleton pattern. We're in the Sprite Manager. We see that here we're creating an instance. Um, we're not doing it on construction. And we are getting the instance, just returning the instance whenever it is called. Here's an example of that right here in the find, and then we're using it um, right there. All right, next is the factory. So here we're in game. This is us creating the factory, and it gets used down here. And here's the internals of the factory, creating the octopi, the squid, and the crabs, and then doing whatever we need to do with them, activating them, returning them. Object pooling, here's our image manager. So we can see that the image manager is using, if we hover over, there's an active and a reserve list. Both are using their own S-Link manager. And then if we go down to the manager base, we see that base add. Um, when we call base add, we're getting the next reserve node. This one also decrements the count. And then we take that and we add it to the front of the active list and return the node. And I think we actually have a texture manager. We'll use one and see that we have the texture manager. Use the manager base, calls over, S-Link, S-Link, iterators. It's all good to go. For priority, here we're in the timer event manager. This is where it starts. We call add to add an event. It calls base add with priority, which goes to the manager base, which just kind of trickles it down and tells the active list to add with priority. That active list is going to be a D-Link manager doing that work. And here we see that we get the node and the priority. And it's agnostic, has no idea what the node actually is, doesn't really care, it just knows it's a node base and it was given a priority, which is just going to be an index. And it'll go in here and it asks the node to get the priority. Node base, it's an abstract in the node base, as we can see, right? Or it's a virtual in the node base, sorry. Um, just asserts false. We could see that there is nothing in the D-Link that has to do with that. It actually goes to the timer event itself, gets the priority, which then trickles back down into the priority manager. All right. Proxy sprite. Here we are in the sprite game proxy. We can see that we have an X, a Y, and a link to the real sprite. Here's us assigning those values to the real sprite when we call this push to real. And other than that, there's just update. We update the sprite as well after pushing the real. The command pattern. Here we're looking at the grid move command. So we have it derives from just a base command type. It has what we're actually going to do in that command, and then this one just re-adds itself to the timer event manager. And then this move horizontal, once it's called and this command is executed, it's going to go in here, and this is how we're actually moving the grid. It's in Alien Grid, so we're actually using a method in Alien Grid for that. For iterator, here's drawing the sprite patch manager, drawing all the sprite patches. We're just going to get the iterator from the manager base, whatever that happens to be, S-Link, D-Link, whatever we want it to be, and then just iterate through, get the current node, and draw it. Template pattern, we wanted to see derived. The call to derived create node. Right now we're in the sprite game manager, showing that it exists at the sprite game manager level. And then in manager base, we're actually going to call that derive create node from the manager base to do that work for us. And so we can actually see sprite pattern. You can see sort of that working in any of these patterns here. Um, Drive create node, it'll come up here and work there. All right, for composite, here's how we're assembling the grids and columns. So we create a column, we add to that column, add to the column, add to the column, and then we add that column to the grid, and that eventually gives us everything we need for that. I actually do have a composite image here. A little hard to tell what's going on, but the alien grid, alien column are composites, whereas the aliens themselves are leaves on that. The use of a null object real quick. When we make a composite, we're just feeding a null object, sprite game and game object in there. And those are just empty. They don't do anything. The adapter and texture, here we are when we call texture.set. What we're actually doing is whatever we're going to do, and then this is calling down to the actual Azul texture right here. And then finally, showing the sprite batch priority code. I think I covered this earlier, but here's actually where it's getting the priority in sprite batch. There's really nothing in sprite batch to show. And so we'll just show that the milestone is working here. We have our aliens dancing back and forth, walking along, and I can toggle the collision boxes on and off. And then to show that the object pooling is working, we have all of our managers dumping out at the end. Here we can see. So we can see that, max is 70 nodes. We got 3 on the reserved. And we also have our timer event manager showing that it has events there. And that actually reminds me, the last thing that we need to look at is the early out in the timer event manager, which will go an update. Whenever update's called, it gets the times, it iterates through, and then as soon as it sees a time that is greater than the current time, the trigger time is greater than the current time, it's just going to early out and leave and end this whole thing. All right, thank you.